some breaking news to bring to you. First off, 2 people have been shot outside of UK's Parliament in London, prompting a lockdown there for some of the key buildings in the UK in London. Take a look at some of those visuals coming in. Quite a bit of security happening there. This on the brinks before Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty is triggered by Prime Minister Theresa May. Again, we're getting reports that at least 12 people injured on the Westminster Bridge, including a photographer there. We're taking a look at some of those visuals coming in. Lots of shots heard outside of Westminster Bridge. We have WION's London Bureau Chief joining us right now to get us the very latest. Mandy Clark in London. Mandy, I know it's still early. What do we know at this hour?
Not very much. Well, we do know that that Parliament is on lockdown, that session has stopped, that there were, as you said, loud crashes and bangs. There are reports from some eyewitnesses that there were someone was being shot at a portcullis house, which is right near Westminster Bridge, right near the House of Parliament. It's a very confused picture. There's also reports of someone carrying a knife, so it sounds like there has been an attack. The person behind it or the people behind it is very unclear at the moment. It's a developing situation.
Certainly, and quite a scary situation out there, as you just pointed out. Let's just bring our viewers up to speed on what exactly we do know. There was some sort of an incident outside of the Parliament in London. We're getting reports that police did shoot a man who appeared to have been wielding a knife. We're also seeing reports from other agencies, including Reuters, saying that at least 12 people, in fact, were hurt on Westminster Bridge after many of the loud bangs and shots were heard. This according to some of our sources there in that area. Mandy Clark again giving us the latest, and we're taking a look at some of those live visuals coming in, a heavy police presence. Mandy, we also know sort of the political spectrum happening right now in the coming days. There is the situation with the official exit, the Britain exit from the EU with Article 50 being triggered. Perhaps at this point too early to speculate, but could there be a correlation, or is that still premature?
It's a bit too early to speculate. You know, Britain has been long under heavy terror threat. It's not critical, but it's severe, the terror threat that's in Britain. This area of London, it's in central London, it's Westminster, and it's very heavily populated with tourists tend to come there because Westminster Abbey's there. There's the House of Parliament. It's a very popular area, so this is going to be an area that's always been quite busy, very popular with tourists. So any security incident would have caused mass chaos there. It would be an ideal location to hit for terrorists, and it always does have a heavy police presence because it's such a prime location.
And we're just getting more updates into our newsroom. Let me bring our viewers up to speed on what we do know at this hour. We're getting reports saying that a car on Westminster Bridge has just mowed down at least 5 people. Certainly many of them we can assume were hurt or injured. No word on which group or how many people were involved in this. We're also getting word from the Metropolitan Police. They're saying they were called around 2:40 of an incident at Westminster Bridge. They're treating that as a firearms incident. So we're not sure these are multiple situations happening, if this is a coordinated terror attack or if it's just one specific situation. Ironically, all of this happening, Mandy, on the brinks, the 1-year anniversary of what happened in Brussels with the situation last year, and certainly a huge push by authorities and police after what happened both in Paris and Brussels. Now, London, again, we're not calling this a terror threat, at least authorities not yet, but certainly Europe is on edge. Mandy?
No, definitely. There's certainly a high level of concern that it might be terror-linked. Of course, we've seen a number of similar type attacks where in France, actually, in Paris, where they have been at the airport and also outside the Louvre, where there was a knife-wielding assailant that were shot by police. This seems to be following a similar pattern. As you say, it's very early, but what we do know is that there was someone wielding a knife and that person has been shot down according to the reports we're getting. This seems like a similar pattern of attack that we've been seeing on the continent. Perhaps it's spreading over to Britain. It's unclear who is behind it and why they decided to try and attack one of the most heavily protected areas in London.
Absolutely. Mandy, thank you so much for all of those updates. Again, breaking news coming out. Some reports saying that shots were fired outside of the British Parliament. Other reports saying that we're getting a car apparently had mowed down some people on Westminster Bridge. We're, of course, chasing all of our sources and leads to get you the very latest. Taking a look at also the live visual there, look at that heavy police presence there. Certainly a busy time in the afternoon. Of course, London GMT is about 5.5 hours behind India time, so it's still early in the afternoon. Take a look at some of the information we're getting in right now. The Metropolitan Police, quote, saying, "We were called at approximately 2:40 p.m. to report of an incident at Westminster Bridge. We are being treated this as a firearms incident. Police on scene." End quote. So again, the latest coming in, some sort of situation happening in London with shots fired, possibly another saying that a man was wielding a knife outside of Parliament, as well as another situation on the Westminster Bridge where apparently a car may have run down at least 5 people there, at least dozens injured, multiple injuries reported outside of there. Again, at this point, police still too early to identify if this is a coordinated attack, if there is more than one situation, or if it is all part of one attack. All of this on the brinks of the Brussels anniversary, where more than 30 people died last year after those explosions, where 3 suicide bombers killed themselves at Belgium's Brussels airport, as well as Molenbeek train station. Europe certainly on edge, given what happened in Paris, where 130 people were killed at the Bataclan back on November of 2015. Joining us again, Mandy Clark with the very latest. Still very early on, Mandy, but at this point, you know, you're in London. You've seen what has happened. Even this past weekend, in fact, we were reporting about what happened in France at the Orly airport. So this is certainly not the first time putting authorities to test and people out there. You know, it's the afternoon. How busy is this area? Typically, just for people outside of London, maybe perhaps describe the scene. We're getting some visuals, seeing a lot of police and buses lined up, but this specific area outside of the Parliament is, how difficult is it to sort of maneuver in that vicinity?
It is very difficult on a good day. This is the heart of London. It's Westminster. It's, of course, the seat of power. So you have members of Parliament constantly going in and out. The House of Lords is right there, too. And on top of that, it attracts a lot of tourists. It's a heavy tourist destination. When people come to London, they want to see Big Ben, which is part of the Houses of Parliament. Just around the corner from the Houses of Parliament is Westminster Abbey, another very popular tourist destination. So it is full of tourists. It's full of members of Parliament. It's at the heart of London. It's not very far from Buckingham Palace or Trafalgar Square. So if you're a tourist, this is kind of on your map on stuff when you come to London, you want to see the House of Parliament. It's always heavy with traffic and very hard to maneuver about. Westminster Bridge is where a lot of the buses come in and out from, and one of the core areas to get into the heart of London.
All right, and more updates just coming in to bring our viewers up to speed. Again, this breaking situation, attack happening outside of the UK Parliament, this breaking story, a developing situation there. We are getting a word from a government source that British Prime Minister Theresa May is okay. We understand at this point no harm or no sort of injuries to her. Of course, all of this happened outside of Parliament. Also, minutes after the incident, the Press Association there says an emergency services helicopter landed in Parliament Square. All of this as sirens were heard outside. Air ambulance medics also coming in to help with some of the victims. We have been told that 2 people were on the ground in the yard. One of them appeared to have suffered some sort of serious injuries as workers there tried to help them out. As you can see there, the Metropolitan Police, also saying this all happened around 2:40 when they were asked there. And then they are saying that we are aware of an incident at Westminster. So we are getting sort of multiple reports. One saying there was some sort of a shooting incident that took place outside of UK Parliament, where perhaps a man with a knife was outside there, perhaps posing a threat, and police may have shot and killed him. Still waiting to gather more details about that. Also seeing reports on Westminster Bridge that a car may have mowed down people. So at this point, not sure if that was a separate incident or if these are both connected. Again, the Press Association providing a little bit more clarity on what is happening. An ambulance reaching the New Palace Yard. Witnesses saying that they heard shots fired and 2 people apparently on the ground. We do know at this point Theresa May, the Prime Minister, is okay according to government sources. A researcher on the scene, witnesses say, quote, they heard some sort of shouting, some sort of incident happening outside there. They thought they heard a gun go off. Still a very active situation. There are armed police moving through that area, as we just heard from Mandy Clark in London. She also said this is not too far from Buckingham Palace, where many of the British royals are, including the Queen. There's also a bunch of people in that vicinity we're getting from the Press Association saying some of the schools have been evacuated, as well as other businesses nearby there. So at this point, we do not know if this is a lone wolf sort of situation or this is a coordinated attack. No group at this point claiming responsibilities, but we are getting word that a police officer was attacked outside of the House of Commons. All right, so again, a quick recap of what is happening. Reports say at least 5 people have been mowed down by a car near the House of Commons. Again, you're taking a look at some of the video there and pictures. A video on the left of your screen, a live visual coming in from London. Some images from what happened outside the House of Commons. This coming in from social media. Mandy, let me get back to you. I know at this point, still early on, but Europe's certainly on edge with what has happened there over the last 15 to 20 months or so, given what happened in Paris and Brussels. London, though, at this point at least, not as many incidences until this specific one, or has there been more of a security presence there in London?
Yeah, and you know, ironically, the police has said in the past that London is overdue for a terror attack. London has obviously suffered terrorism in the past. In the 80s, there was a lot of, this may take you back a while, but the IRA, so the Irish Republican movement, certainly targeted London, and then not in 2005 there was the London bombings that was linked to Islamic terrorism. So far there has been smaller incidents of terror in London, but there hasn't been big attacks too recently in the recent past. But London has been on high alert. It is one of the prime targets for terrorists since it is such a big city. So it in many ways, it feels like it was overdue. When I spoke to a police officer just a few days ago, he said, you know, we have to be right 100% of the time, and a terrorist just has to get lucky once. So it just shows the level of security that is on the streets of Britain at all times because it is such a high-level target.
And interestingly, you know, given the political situation happening there, again, a live look at some of the visuals, a heavy police presence, 2 specific things. One, Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, formally triggering Britain out of the European Union. That's sort of brewing. It's happening with what Theresa May came out and said, as well as this whole travel ban, where UK has also joined the United States when it comes to restricting some of those airlines and some of those passengers from bringing on board possible situations. I mean, at this point, these may or may not be linked. We don't know. We're sort of extrapolating, but 2 big sort of stories brewing in the UK on the brinks of this attack, all also happening on the 1-year anniversary of the Brussels terror attack. Again, what we're hearing at this point, that several gunshots were heard outside of Parliament. Theresa May is okay, but Parliament was in session. Many of the schools and businesses in that area evacuated. Mandy, sort of paint the scene about that. You know, it looks like it's Big Ben and it's a very busy area. Is that just mostly a lot of businesses and buildings in that area, or are there schools and other homes and residential cafes perhaps within that Parliament area? What type of people do we typically see at this hour, still early afternoon there in London?
Well, you know, this is central London, so a lot of the houses are going to be very expensive. But there are schools that operate in Westminster. It is largely this area specifically. You're going to get a lot of historic buildings. You're going to have the House of Lords, of course, is right nearby. There's going to be a lot of businesses, law firms. You know, this is one of the most expensive areas in the city, so you're going to have businesses that are doing quite well. It also is cheek and jowl next to some homes, so there are families that live in around the area. It's not right in Westminster, but in around the area there will be schools and homes and families. But you're largely looking at a high density area with historic buildings, lots of businesses around there. You've got Parliament, and those are the majority of the people who are going to be there, as well, of course, as the tourists. There's lots and lots of tourists who operate around this area because they want to see those iconic sites of London. So that's the feeling of when you are in Westminster. It's Parliament, It's tourists and a few families.
All right, and if you